Update: my husband handed me divorce papers out of nowhere, saying he didn't want the kids, and walked out without looking back. 3 days later, he and his parents were at my door, faces pale and desperate. He thought it was over when he left, but the real trouble for him was only just beginning. Part 2. 3 days later, as I returned from work, I found my husband and in-laws waiting at the front door. "Iris, where have you been?" my mother-in-law demanded, her face red with fury, while my father-in-law stood pale and my husband looked confused. "Have you been waiting out here all this time? That's kind of creepy. This is no time for jokes. What is this?" My mother-in-law thrust a letter at me. "It's a notice from a lawyer," I replied calmly. "I can see that much. Why would you send this?" she shouted, her voice rising with irritation. "I need to pick up my daughters, so excuse me." I ignored them and went inside, but they followed me into the living room, insisting on a discussion. "Why would you suddenly send this? I don't understand." "You'd understand if you read the letter, wouldn't you? Using a lawyer is so cowardly," she snapped. Despite knowing they were in the wrong, her outrage was something else. Finally, my husband spoke, still clueless. "Are you upset because I divorced you? Filing some kind of complaint?" His parents stared at him, dumbfounded. "I didn't hear about any divorce." My father-in-law shouted. "Is that why this is happening? Such a useless son. What are you two even talking about?" my husband asked, still confused. Seeing the conversation go nowhere, I decided to answer for him. He completely failed to fulfill his duties as a husband and father. "There you go again." My mother-in-law snapped. "That's just how men are, right? So you would forgive your husband if he had an affair?" I asked coldly. My mother-in-law froze, stunned. She hadn't expected to hear that her son had been unfaithful. My husband tried to interject, but a sharp glare from me shut him up. Then, to my surprise, my father-in-law spoke up. "A man's affair is just a fling. It's not a problem. This is pointless. Please leave. Any further communication will need to go through my lawyer." "What are you talking to a lawyer for now? You agreed to the divorce, right?" My husband still looked lost. "I filed for divorce right away." "Then what is all this about?" While he was still confused, my mother-in-law started to cry loudly. "Paying $56,000 in one lump sum is impossible," she wailed. "What lump sum? What are you talking about?" my husband asked, looking even more baffled. Finally, it was time for me to reveal everything. "It was right after we got married, 4 years ago. Your mother asked me to come over alone.